All right, coming back with another one. What I was going for is that what I was trying to convey with this is that something of the difference of what's called, like, a lot of people, they like the word, a lot of people think about the word professional, and they think about, like, that something is not real unless it's professional, or something is not good unless it's professional. And I don't know that that's true, but there are some distinctions between what's appreciated as professional or not. And I think that some of how they can appear, but also some of what they can mean, can be significant. But it can be, by and large, how something is approached can be what allows a person to be received as, or to function as, what's called professional. And sometimes they can be some very simple things, but like critical things that would make a person professional. But I think that the true distinction in just in terms of value about what's professional or not is just the type of experiences that can be enjoyed, or can be realized, and it can be the type of service we can do, and then also the type of experiences we can have in that service and from that service is what makes a person professional. So I was saying that I had driven a as a delivery driver for a long time, and I had some skill around there. But the person who trained me in that, and then some of the responsibility I had doing that would be similar to what a professional driver would have, which is that I had the welfare and well-being of myself and road users on my hand, generally when I have a vehicle driving down the road. But the person who trained me, who was far more outstanding then and likely now than I had been or was as a driver, and especially as a delivery driver, he told me that on paper, in that role, as much skill and responsibility as you would have, you're not considered a professional in technical terms. It's like an entry level work, and he was saying, like, to just be clear about that. But then after that experience, I got into a role that could be appreciated as professional because it required a professional, it required a licensing, and it had a high degree of responsibility and liability, that being a professional driver. But a lot of the skills were similar, and the responsibility were similar, but yet the skills were even higher. The skills were amplified, and the responsibility was amplified. So you had yourself and other road users on the hand, on your welfare, and other road users on your hand, including the passengers. But you had more of them, so you had more passengers on your hands, and then you also had a larger vehicle, so you have more of other road users and more of your own welfare on your hand with the larger vehicle. But some of the things that would really just make you a professional in that sense would be awareness of the limitation of awareness is one of the main critical distinctions and also skills of a professional driver. And then I was going beyond that, is that, like, but I've also had success with music around that time, like, or at least confidence with the guitar. And then, like, so some people would wonder what was a professional guitar, was a professional musician and not. And some people would say, in the strictest sense, it's once you've been compensated for it. And then, so I recently got my first compensation with guitar, where I started getting tips for guitar, and it actually started happening quickly. I hadn't got tips with music. I hadn't had any compensation with music as long as I've been interested in music, and, like, spending resources to get better. But then within about a week or two, I got 3 tips in a row doing music. And so I think that might be that's significant. Like, some things, like, if you were to observe the development of a plant, which, in according to Arthur Avalon, a human being can be appreciated as a plant. He would call it a yoga plant. But if you appreciate a plant, or a child, or something that's developing, a person, there's certain, like, indications, like when a child gets off of training wheels onto 2 wheels on a bike. I remember the first time I did that. That's an appreciable distinction in development, because now they have confidence from that, they have skill from that, but then also they're going to have different experiences now, even in the neighborhood, in the community, where they have more mobility and independence. and therefore they can go to the edge of boundaries again. Because like even when you're a kid, you have boundaries. Because like I grew up in a cool place in the Southwest, and it had like a gate around it, so I could do whatever in the heck I wanted to within that gate. But there's a gas station about maybe not very far, like 2 blocks away, but it's outside of the bounds. And you had to be old enough to go outside for that gas station. Like all the families were the same way about that. That you're not going to that gas station unless you're with someone. So all the cool kids that thought they were older, they would go out to that gas station, and you felt like a big kid, or you felt naughty like going out to that gas station. But you really didn't have no business there, because gas stations were dangerous for us then as kids, and gas stations are still dangerous for adults at any level. But part of but you have a bike like that, and then you come up to the edge of what is okay and not, where you can and cannot go. And then if you were fortunate, like I had a friend growing up who was Native American. He wasn't Native American from the area I was at. We were in the Southwest, but his father was from Florida. But he would do all the coolest stuff with us in the area where we were at, where he would take us on bikes, like in a larger geographic area in our neighborhood than we'd normally go occasionally. But then he'd also take us to the foothills of the mountains, where we lived close to a mountain, but it was still far across the way. It was still like 20 and 30 miles to get there. And then he would take us on trails on the mountain on bikes. And then he'd also take us to like hot springs, like at like mountains, like to go, like it's like an actual hot tub pool in the middle of nature, created by nature. Like he would take us to do that. Or he'd take us to like a watering hole, which is like a hole of water that goes deep, deep, deep into the earth, but it actually comes up into like a swimming pool with like great depth, and it had like a rock face where you can jump off there. But he had to be confident in like how well we could swim, because he needed me to be able to tread water. So he would take us to, and also I grew up around like a university campus, because my father was a graduate student and he was a graduate student. And first he would take me and my friends swimming there, and I actually didn't know what he was doing, but I thought it was so fun and cool that he would take us swimming, and it was fun and cool. But he was actually wanting to see how confident I am in water and how I was in water. And then once he saw that, then he started taking me to cooler things, and like taking us I almost want to cry when I think about that, man, right? Damn, I but he taught me a lot of stuff, and like he had us doing cool stuff, but he first needed us to get he wanted to see how comfortable we were with things. Part of it was like when I was young, he told my mother that he appreciated that he didn't see a lot of fear in he didn't see any fear in me, and as a child. And like a lot of times, like people talk about like outside, that we're outside, and like where I was growing up in the 90s, where there were like you had a lot of you had a lot of violence in the culture in the 90s, and like some of the kids in the neighborhood where I was at, they were into stuff that might not have been good for them, and it was part of the larger culture. And so you had a lot of that stuff going on in the neighborhood where I was at. But I was interested in sports and in like basketball and like bikes and stuff like that. So I was in the neighborhood. I was with all those people that got that stuff going on. But I wasn't. Sometimes you actually don't know what's going on like in front of your face. But those people that had that stuff going on, they never brought me into that. But I was just simply around them and not intimidated by them. And if I was big enough to, I would have thrown hands with any of them, and I probably would have been better than a lot of them, because I was better than them at sports. But he saw that, and he appreciated that as having not being fearful. But all I meant to say is that but you have a child that's now riding a bike, and that child can get up onto boundaries, and that's part of them growing. But the significance is just that now that they're on two wheels, they're going to have different experiences than they otherwise would. And so that's like an example of us like growing now.